We're live! We're live! And we're live! Everybody, welcome to SPSM. This is the Dallas, Texas edition, and it is actually our season closer. We're now finishing year 2 of our Sunday night SPSM chats. I'm so excited about tonight's programming. We're doing the warm-up, and I did not cry, but I worked at not crying. And I'm really thrilled. I'm really thrilled because we have Kevin Briggs here tonight, and we have Dr. Bill Schmitz, and of course Bart Andrews and I are going to open and close because the vibe was so good. Much of today is going to go a little differently. Today we're going to be having Mr. Kevin Briggs, a law enforcement officer. Many of you have seen his TED Talk, and hopefully you've checked out the links. He's going to be discussing his book. And we have Dr. Bill Schmitz, recent past president of the American Association of Suicidology, who has read some of the book, and they're going to be talking about the content in it. It's going to be great. And of course, Dr. Bart Andrews. And Tony is with us. Come say hi to the people, Tony. Tony has come in. We're here at the Pointer Conference. I want to remind you all to please retweet and share messages. It really makes a difference. It broadens our audience, and it really helps us with our mission to spread, to infect everyone with our expertise about suicide prevention. And I'm going to bring up our co-host, Dr. Bart Andrews.
Good evening, everybody. What a treat to be here. The show tonight, I think, is going to be so amazing, so I'm glad that you're all joining us. Again, I am Dr. Bart Andrews at Behavioral Health Response. BHR is an amazing crisis agency in the St. Louis area. I'm going to do a little bragging, if I may, for a minute. We were just at the Zero Suicide Academy with our partner agency, Crider Health Center, and it was an amazing experience, so thank you to the Suicide Prevention Resource Center. Sarah was amazing. It was just an amazing experience. Other good news I have is that BHR used to be a part of the Veterans Hotline backup system, and we're actually rejoining the Veterans Hotline backup team starting in August, so I'm really excited about that. We're going to be helping veterans again, so that's very cool. The show's going to be really excited tonight. Many folks may know Kevin and know Kevin Briggs' story. Some of the content may be triggering for folks. We just want folks to be aware of that. If something is triggering for you, reach out to one of us. We'll be watching very closely. Reach out to a trusted friend or call the Lifeline. But we do care about you and recognize that sometimes topics like this can be really triggering for folks, and we want to put that out there. And I'm excited, April, and I'm so glad to have Dr. Schmidt and Kevin here. It's amazing.
And so, Bill Schmitz, really quickly, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. I am a clinical psychologist here in Baton Rouge. I'm also past president of the American Association of Suicidology, and had the good pleasure of obviously seeing Kevin's TED Talk, and as part of this show tonight, I've got an advanced portion of his book and was able to really kind of learn a lot about him. I knew he was an impressive speaker coming into today. In the last 48 hours, I've learned a lot more about him, and he's just all the more impressive. So I think we have a lot to learn.
And without any further ado, I want to introduce Mr. Kevin Briggs. Everybody, do your Twitter version of applause. Tweet your applause. We are so glad that he's with us. Kevin, I was really thrilled to run into you at NatCom. We were introduced by our mutual friend, Kevin Hines, right. And you were very excited to tell me about this book that you had coming out. And I already knew who you were, so I was like not going to go up and fangirl you and squeal. I was really working on being cool. But before we get into talking about this book, for those of you who may not know as much, can you tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do in law enforcement?
Sure. Once again, my name is Kevin Briggs, and I spent over 23 years with the California Highway Patrol, both as an officer and a sergeant, and most of my career was spent working in or around the Golden Gate Bridge. And the Golden Gate Bridge, the icon that it is, the beautiful area with hundreds of thousands of people come there every year from all over the world, but it also has this very dark side with suicides. And this is what I focused on. When I first started, no training, I'm sure we'll get into that, but 40 to 60 folks a year lose their life on that bridge. And our job, it was just not me doing this, but our job was to try to prevent that as best as we can. So, and how, when we did lose someone, how it affected us. and of course the families, and it turned out to be a very, very big portion of my life. So this is how this book came to be, and the TED Talk, and these different things. So here I am.
So before we talk more about the book, also, I want to give you a chance to share with the SPSM crowd. We talk a lot about the lived experience community, and one of the things that really made me just love you that much more at NatCon was when you started talking about your personal experience trying to help your son utilize the mental health system, and that it really made some things really clear to you. And I'm wondering if you can share a little bit of your personal story.
Absolutely. I can show you. I'd be happy to tell you the whole story about my little boy.
Yeah,
if you'd
go
like.
for it.
My little boy is 14 years old now, and his name is Kevin Jr. And last year, I retired in November of 2013 to do what I'm doing now, write a book and go out and talk about some of my experiences and how we can help each other through communication and suicide prevention. But as I was flying all around the world, I came back one particular time, landed at San Francisco Airport, and I turned my cell phone on, and there was a call that I had missed with a voicemail. And it was my younger son, Travis, who was age 12. And I thought it would be a greeting like, hey, Dad, glad you're home. Stop by the house. I'm divorced, and the boys stay with their mother most of the time. But I thought it would be a, hey, Dad, stop by the house on your way back to your house. But it wasn't. It was little Travis saying, Dad, you need to get here quick. Kevin is very angry. He broke an iPad. He's in the backyard, and he says he's going to kill himself. So a little drama going on. I took it with a little grain of salt. Kids, they can play things out. But I started working my way up there, of course. It takes me about an hour to get up there. Well, on my way up there, I received a couple of texts, and one was saying, Dad, you need to hurry up and get here. And another one was little Travis texting out, Dad, when you get here, say nice things to Kevin. Don't make him angry. Something to that effect, which I thought was really cute. But when I get to the house, my sister lives with my ex and my two boys. I walk in, and they're in the family room, and I see little Kevin in the backyard. And it's completely dark out there. He's out there just pacing. And I watched him for a minute or so. And then I went in the backyard, and I've always called him baby boy. So I put my hand on his shoulder, and I go, hey, baby boy, what's going on? And he just broke down, completely broke down. And there's some music coming on now. All of
I think we may have a little bit of audio. So we want to check our audio real quick. Hey, Bill and Bart, can you guys check and see if you have all the windows open? Sorry, we're having a technical snafu. This happens.
Nice song, by the way.
We're all soundtracky. There we go. It's Bill.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So we'll get back into this. I walked out there, and I put my hand on his shoulder, and I said, hey, baby boy. He was facing away from me. And I said, what's going on? And he immediately broke down crying, really bad crying, to where he could barely stand. We went and sat in the backyard for, I'm going to say 45 minutes or so. And I asked him, what is going on? What happened this evening? And he had so much built up in his life, in his little, he was 13 at the time, his little 13-year-old life. Grades. He gets very good grades in school. That was part of it. Is I didn't think I was pushing him for the grades, but apparently I was, because he said I was. So that's one thing I'd show people. It's what they think. So, all right, I found that out. In my divorce, I had not talked with him about that. I was ashamed of it and guilty and all these other things. I just didn't bring it up. He thought he was the reason for the divorce, which was absolutely wrong. And I felt terrible for this, and a number of things. He is very clean-cut, gets great grades, a big-time soccer player, and he was getting, some of his friends were doing drugs and were asking him about it also. So he was upset about that, a number of things. So we decided to go see. I got him through that night, and we made a pact between us. But we decided to go see a clinician. And I'm with Kaiser. We went and made an appointment. And the day we went to see the clinician, I asked, baby boy, would you like me in the room with you? He said yes. And I asked the clinician, would you like me in the room? And they both said yes, separately. Okay. We go in the room, and the clinician starts asking little Kevin all sorts of questions, just trying to get a feel for him. What's he like? What's his family like? What's his family life like? All these things going on. What does he not like about the house, about each person and things? And Kevin is being very forthright and honest and coming out clean with everything. And then he comes up, he leads into things, and he goes, well, have you ever cut yourself on purpose? And little Kevin goes, he says, yes. And he points like to his wrist with a pencil or a pen sticking action. And of course I knew what this is, the non-surgical self-injury. I've seen it many, many times on people. But when it's your own family, it hit me so hard that I did not know anything about this. I was sitting facing the two. They were facing each other, and I was on the side facing them. I couldn't even look at him. I had to turn away. I was tearing up, as I do now. I was shocked. I said, here I am, trampling all over the world, and this is happening at my home in front of my face, and I'm missing it. What a failure. It was horrible. So baby boy says that, and he just done it once. And then the clinician asked him, he goes, well, you're not suicidal, are you? And it blew me away when he said that. How could you ask me
So
question?
that's not what we should say. Is that what you're saying?
No, and I will go into that. And it gets even better. And then he turns and he looks to his left and he looks at me, and I have to preface this with I had told him what I do now for a living. There was some suicide ideation. But he turns and he looks at me and he goes, did I cover all the bases? I thought, wow, talk about losing rapport and just going downhill with this. So it kept going through that first phase. And when we were done, I spoke with him without little Kevin in the room, and I explained this. In my opinion, in my experience, I don't have the degrees on the walls or anything else, but the guy turned out to be very humble. He didn't have the ego, which really helps, because an ego in this area just totally shuts down. There's no need. It doesn't work. I told him my experience and how we generally do this. He was very accepting of that. And I told him, for the little kid, if you're going to look at a little kid and say something like that, it would be like, well, you're not going to throw that rock through that window, are you? Or you're not going to take your little sister and push her out in the street or push her down, are you? Of course they're going to say no. You can't ask them like that. You answered it for them.
So how did it feel to be more skillful than the clinician you were going to for professional help?
I was embarrassed for him, to be honest with you. But I went to them. I thought, this is the guy who, these people know this. This is what they're trained for. They go through years of schooling for this. I did not know afterwards. I found out that many, many, many clinicians up and down the line in California do not get the training in suicide assessment and ongoing treatment. I did not know this.
Yeah.
So, but he was not. We actually stayed with him. He turned out to be very, very well. And Kevin Jr. is doing very well now. So it was an eye-opening experience for me. I learned a lot about myself, some shortcomings that I had that could have proved fatal for little Kevin. And it's much better now. So it was a growing experience for all of us, the clinician, myself, little Kevin, the whole family. So.
Well, one of the things that really stood out to me, Kevin, in reading some of the material you wrote, is as a clinician myself, and a lot of people within SPSM do crisis intervention work through the telephones, I was struck because even though I may see someone at high risk for suicide, and even in crisis, I don't see them in that same state that you see them.
Right. And it depends on the state. Of course, when I see him, I don't see him out of the state that you're in most of the time.
Yeah.
But when I see them, generally it's just a couple of different ways. Some people are emotional, very emotional, up and down, and we see this. And what we try to do as negotiators is take advantage of that and really try to stretch out the time. But when we get the people who are up there, who are just melancholy, just kind of hanging out, they're over the rail, and there's no emotion, blank stare. They'll answer my questions. We'll talk. They'll offer me a little bit. Those are the ones that I really, really worry about because they're at peace. They're ready to go.
Well, and I love to tell people what your one question is that I had never thought would be as profound, but it makes sense that you use so often up there on the bridge.
As far as it depends on where I'm at.
But early on, asking about tomorrow.
Oh yeah, yeah. So if and mind you, they're not over the rail. If we get a be on the lookout or something, I try to make conversation with them, and they see I'm in what I call the monkey suit. So I just approach, hi, how are you? Beautiful day, huh? And I'll get to working some conversation in there, and eventually get to the point of if I'm getting feedback, I think this may be something more than just a bad day. Is supposed to be really nice tomorrow. I got to work, unfortunately, but what do you got going on tomorrow? And if they stutter, stumble, if they can't come back pretty quick with an answer, it's a big, big indicator for me. Big, big indicator.
There's no thought for tomorrow.
Yeah, because we all have plans. I can tell you what I'm doing tomorrow. Everybody can tell, for the most part, what they're going to do tomorrow.
Well, speak about what people's reaction are to you in uniform as you pull up.
As when they are over the rail?
Yeah.
It varies, but I've seen sighs of relief when I pull up, and when I would do this towards the latter part of my career, when I was happened to get a lot of training, I did this a lot different than when I first began. When I first began, we're taught to kind of rush in, take control, do this, but towards the end, what I did was ask people permission. I would get within 20 feet or so, and then ask their permission to come up and talk, and really try to allow them to control the situation. And that really helped. That helped tremendously in building the rapport and getting them to look up at me, getting them away from looking down at the water, trying to get their head thinking away from what they came out and possibly intended to do. So if they will eventually, hopefully, allow me to come up and speak with them, I'm just introduce myself as Kevin. I'm not Sergeant Kevin Briggs with the California Highway Patrol, just Kevin. And I want to come up, and when I initially look at someone, I'm looking at the whole person. I want to see if we still have that officer safety thing going on, always. So I want to see, could they be armed? I'm looking for things. But after that, I'm focusing on their face. And that's all that I want to see, and that's all that I want them to see of me. And if they're not wearing a jacket, whatever, I'm not going to wear a jacket. I want to be like them. If it's cold, which it almost always is out there, I'm going to be suffering with them on that cold. It's important to me. And
does that then give you a talking point with them?
Absolutely, because I'll be shaking. I'll be honest with you. And most of the time, it's not that I'm scared or nervous. I'm shaking because it's cold. And you're on steel. You know, you're leaning against steel, or I'm down kneeling against steel on this bridge talking to these folks. I want to feel what they're feeling as much as I can. Now, I'm not going to understand what's going through their head. Absolutely not. But there's other ways that I can build rapport and see what is going on. And they'll see me shaking. And sometimes they'll even ask, are you scared? Or are you cold? I go, man, I'm both. I'm scared for you. I'm scared that I'm blowing it here, not being able to connect to you. And that helps, because it's true. I'm being perfectly honest with them. I want to build that rapport. I want them to be safe. And you know, it has helped me with that. It really has.
There's a lot of rawness and emotion to your approach. And I guess my question is, how did that come to be? Because for someone with your background, U.S. Army, did a stint at San Quentin on the other side of the bars.
Glad you said that.
And law enforcement, those are not your typical touchy-feely settings.
Right, right. Well, I think I lost, or I would say my grandfather on my father's side lost his life to suicide. I've had some things happen in my family that are very negative. My own health issues. I had cancer. I've had some heart surgeries. I'm diagnosed with depression. These things can build you up, or they can knock you down and keep knocking you down. And I looked at it, okay, these things happen to me. Given the right number of wrong circumstances, any one of us can be over that rail. And it is my job as a human, giving the whole uniform aside, the Highway Patrol, nothing else, is so important for me to get to those people, to get them back over that rail. I'm not going to solve their problems, their issues. It's not going to happen. But at least we can give them a chance. If I can take them down to somebody at one of the, like San Francisco General Hospital, Marin General Hospital, we take these folks to a hospital and try to get them some help. Hopefully they can, and give them another time for that. But I want to tell you one thing, though. The look on people's face when they do come back over that rail, it's like you're looking into the eyes of a newborn baby. But these folks, they're scared, but you can see it in their face. They're excited. The stress is kind of relieved for just a few minutes. They've had so many things built up that when they come back over, it's like looking in just the eyes of a child. They're relieved, but they're kind of thinking, what's going on now? It's something that you don't forget. It really is. It's really need to be part of that. I'm not saving anybody. I believe I'm a conduit, hopefully a helper in that. And that's how I look at it, and that's what I want it to be.
Helping them to choose life is really the key.
Yes, because if they choose it, rather than me having to reach over and grab them, which we don't do, but if they choose it, they're going to work harder at staying alive. They need to want it. That's the thing with all of this. You have to want it. And if you do, then we're going to start working on little goals, maybe daily goals, and you folks know this, but let's set some goals and start working on those. And that's
obviously, I was having some technical issues earlier. Did you talk at all about all the great training that the Highway Patrol gave you for the bridge?
And I want to interject that people are asking about that, and Julie Sorrell wants to know how you got your technique. How did you figure this out?
Unfortunately, it was by, I'm going to say, not trial and error. I did not lose someone due to lack of training. When I first started with the Highway Patrol working on that bridge, I had no idea what went on there as far as suicides and the mental illness and the whole bit. I had no training, zero.
So what did the department say? What was kind of the departmental attitude towards that patrol?
It wasn't talked about. People didn't talk about suicides. The Golden Gate Bridge, Highway and Transportation District, the only time you would really hear about it or talk about it is when you went down there and asked people specifically, hey, this happened. We need to get some training. I don't know how to confront this. As peace officers, we're used to going in and, we take a firm control of what's going on. That's what we're taught. We are taught to control the situation. In a situation like this, with someone specifically over the rail, you can't control that. Maybe you can control where they move to if they wanted to walk up and down that rail, but you certainly can't control anything else. You can't. But I can control what I say and how I act. And that's what I wanted to learn. So I started doing research and asking people what worked, what didn't. And another thing that really helped me out was each and every person, whether they were over the rail or not, that I encountered with a mental illness or whatever reason they were there, that were thinking or contemplating suicide, I would ask them, what did I do right and what did I do wrong? And that helped me out tremendously. You have to. It's still a learning process. I'm still taking classes in this, even though I'm not actively with the Highway Patrol. If I'm going to talk about this, I'm always learning. So I'm learning about myself and how I can help others.
That's wonderful.
Eventually, I did get some training, crisis intervention training. I was one of the very few people, I was so fortunate to go to the FBI Crisis Negotiation School, and that was just wonderful. I learned so much there. So then, I see what I did wrong and what I did right and how I can do things better. And it's a growing experience. It's a growing experience as a person. And, that's what I do. That's what I enjoy.
Can you share some about the just kind of the practicalities of the bridge? I know it through postcards and pictures, and it looks very quiet and serene and majestic. It's certainly got a lot of mysticism to it, and there's some misconceptions about that you can speak to as well. But just kind of the practicalities of noise and location and how that impacts trying to interact with someone who's really in an acute state of crisis.
Right. Sure. Briefly, there's mountains on each side, so to speak, and the bridge connects Marin County to San Francisco, and it's almost 2 miles long, 1.8 or so. So up on that bridge, with the water going through, that's on beaches and mountains on each side, that water going through is billions of gallons of water going through to the bay and to the deltas. So you have a huge, huge, nasty current every day in and out of there. That's one of the things that we really have to watch. But the wind, the noise from the traffic, there's traffic going on that bridge, 24 hours a day. And especially during commute time or during the day or on a weekend, it's a lot of traffic. And all that noise just echoes off of all that steel from that bridge. And it's a very, very cold area to work. June, July, August. Anybody out there, if you're coming to visit San Francisco, I hate to say it, but if you want to go on the bridge, generally don't come June, July, and August. I hate to say it, but it gets very foggy up there during those months a lot of times. So you have all these things to compete with before you even start to negotiate with someone. You get all this noise and the cold, and then with the traffic, sometimes you will get people driving by because they know what's going on. They see the police there talking with someone, and they'll yell out things. Jump, you SOB, things like this. So all that rapport that you have built up with these folks is now taken away because some knucklehead is going to be 5 minutes late getting home, but he wants to make these remarks. There's a lot of things to compete with over there. We have to stop the traffic on the sidewalks for the pedestrians going back and forth. And there's a lot of witnesses. If this person does unfortunately jump off of that, and these folks watch this, that's an impact on them. There's so many things that go on up there. So
I would think you have to almost yell in order to be heard clearly. I think that would make it hard. I mean, it's easy in my comfy office to be soft and soothing and all those other things. Something tells me that's not working up there.
Anyone, Bill.
Right, and that's the bad part of it. Right now, I can talk mellow, nice, calm. Up there, you have to talk maybe 2 or 3 times louder just to get your point across or the question that you're asking. So it's not conducive for what you're trying to do. It's really not. But you have to do the best that you can given the circumstances. And that's what we try. I was saying before, when I talk to someone, I'll do that so-called cursory search where I'm looking up and down at them, but then all I really focus on is their face and their hands, so to speak. But I want to see their face, and I want them to see my face. I want to see the empathy, what's going on, because I truly, truly want them to live. And it's not to say, Kevin Briggs saved someone, look at this. I don't keep track of who cares. I'm focused on that individual because I want that person to live. That's what we all want. That's how it should be. And when I'm done with this, go ahead.
No, I keep going.
And when I'm done with this, we have to write reports, of course. When I'm writing a report on this, sometimes I forget totally what they were wearing. I cannot remember a clue of what they were wearing, but I can tell you about their face because that's what I'm looking at. And I tell people that this doesn't sound quite right sometimes either, but I want to dig into them like a tick. That's what I try to do, to get their emotions going so they can see that I'm real, that I care, that I have the empathy. This is what we want from negotiators, and there's negotiators around the world that do this, and this is what we strive to do.
How does this kind of juxtapose against what you did on patrol? And I mean, you've seen a lot of gruesome things, and how does that impact the negotiation work and just kind of you as a person?
Most of the time for police, we're on a lot of instances, we're reactive. So when I get to that traffic accident and there's a death involved, you see it, but you weren't there beforehand. Or, sometimes you get there and you got to do the CPR and someone does die on you. Most of the time, though, you're reacting to something that already happened. Whereas up on the bridge, many times you talk to someone, and they're there, and they're living, and they're talking to you, and they're crying, and they're upset, and sometimes they're happy, and they're smiling if they're talking on the cell phone if they have it. They get these big mood swings. But then if they jump, they're just gone. You were there talking with them for some hour or more. I spoke to a guy for 8 hours once. But now all of a sudden, boom, and they're gone. So we have developed things over the years to help us with that as officers. And one of the things that we do is, if I am up there speaking with someone and they decide to take their life, that's the end of the line for me. I no longer handle that case. Another officer will go down to the Coast Guard docks, stay with that body until the coroner arrives. That way I don't see that, and it affects me greater. So it already affects you enough that I take it personally. I lost someone. It was my job, even though I know in my heart that I did the best that I could or tried. It's still a little piece that says, what could I have done better? And it breaks your heart. But to get us, because we have to come back and do this the next day, it's important. We try to think of the greater good, the vast majority that we have helped, because that's how it is. It truly is. The amount of people that we, and I'm just going to say save for lack of a better term right now, the amount of people that we save is far superior than to the ones that we lose. And that's important.
And it sounds like the culture of that patrol has really changed over this last couple decades.
It has. There are negotiation conferences all around the world now, which probably started way before the Highway Patrol even began. I didn't know these even existed almost till my retirement. But you see police forces now having these large conferences with thousands of people sometimes, and they spread the word. So when I get to go to these and they ask me to speak, I will tell my experiences and my own personal experiences with depression and things up on the stage. But what's really neat is after that, I get to sit in the audience and learn what other people have done and gone through. So I'm taking a lot of notes, and that's what this is about. It really is the sharing of information so we can do a better job.
Continual growth is so essential.
Right.
I'm going to break in with just a couple of questions. The feed's going great. One of the things that Dr. Julie Serrell is wanting to know is any thoughts about being able to replicate the wisdom that Kevin Briggs has got. Like, can we somehow learn what he knows and transmit that to less experienced first responders? And then we have some folks wanting Briggs to talk about the lack of barriers on the Golden Gate Bridge.
Okay, I can definitely address the barrier one first. And there hasn't been, the bridge opened in 1937, May of 1937, and still to this date there are no barriers on that. It was designed to have a rail, pedestrian rail, I don't know, 6 feet or so, but it only turned out at the last minute. I think they redid it, and it's only about 4 feet now. But last year, because partly the Bridge Rail Foundation and a lot of other people got into this, the bridge board decided to vote for a suicide barrier. It's going to be about 3 years or so before it goes up, and it's supposed to be they call it a net. I don't believe it's going to be an actual netting material, more of a metal because of the marine environment. But it's going to be about 20 feet below the bridge, and there's a reason for that. Studies have shown that when someone jumps off the building, if it's not that tall, or the bridge, and they live, which is very, very few, 1 to 2%, the millisecond that they let go, many folks get this big hit of reality and goes, oh my God, what did I do? I want to live. I want to live. And unfortunately, most of the time that it doesn't happen after that. But they're going to get that, and then they're going to hit this net. And this net is going to enclose them, and then we're going to contract with one of the local fire departments to go over and get them. So there is a suicide net and suicide barrier going to be erected on that bridge. Last year, I heard the price was $78 million, something in that range, and you know it's going to be higher than that by the time it actually gets built. But it's going to reduce suicides dramatically on that bridge. So
And Kevin, can you speak to what your thoughts were at first when you heard about the barrier?
I wasn't for it. I told you, I wasn't for it, to be honest with you. I enjoyed going up on that bridge, looking straight down. You can look over that rail right now. Look over that rail and see the porpoises that swimming out. You can look right down to the water. You can see the seals coming out, the ships. I saw the Queen Mary go through that. All sorts. It's really, really cool to look straight down at the water and watch what's going on. And I thought, for the number of suicides that occur on that bridge compared to the amount of folks that come to visit that bridge, that just come to visit and see it and have a nice time, is extremely small. But I went to a class, and after I retired, actually, and a gentleman who had lost his daughter on the bridge was there. And he walked up to me and introduced himself, and he says, Kevin, he goes, you handled my daughter's case, and I want to thank you for what you did. You were very kind that day. And he asked me about the bridge and the railette. And I go, well, I got to be honest with you. I was waiting for him to hit me. He goes, I gotta be honest with you, and I explained my reason. I like to look over, and people fly in from all over the world to do this. And he goes, well, Kevin, I want you to look at it like this for a second. He stepped back, and he was very calm. And he goes, you have the view, or you have a life. And he swayed me right there. I felt so embarrassed. I go, how could I have been this way for so many years? And I'm sure many people are. He swayed me right there. All it took was that. So I told him, boy, I felt so ignorant. Yeah, that's how that went.
And just to interject something that's really important, because not everybody who's watching is a suicidologist, could Dr. Schmitz or Kevin Briggs talk about what happens once we stop somebody from suicide? And if you put the barrier on the bridge, are they just going to find another way to die, or is something better going to happen?
I'll leave that one to one of you guys. I have heard different things, but I'm sure
the data is extremely conclusive that the vast majority of people will not go on to die by another means. In fact, we know that I think the number is 90% of people that make one suicide attempt will go on and not die by suicide. So it really speaks to how critical intervention is even at that point.
So, you know, having that barrier up and keeping somebody alive is going to save a lot of people. They're not going to go on to reattempt, and they're going to, you know, when you talked about that split second that they really wish that they hadn't jumped, that's going to give them their lives back.
Right, and that's what the science is telling us. So,
and that's almost a uniform response from every single individual that has survived that jump. And we see this often in people that make an overdose attempt, and they can take a lot of very lethal different poisons, and that will to live can kick in. And if we can save them, it really is that rebirth kind of process that Kevin was talking about that he'd see in their eyes coming over that bridge.
So I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. Julie Searle really is. Several people are saying that that your commentary about your technique is better, is bringing more valuable information than some trainings have. That they're really finding this valuable. Can you talk a little bit about what inspired you to write the book? And when the book's coming out, just like, because we've posted some information about this, but we do want to make sure people know that they can read this, because Dr. Schmitz sort of has the jump on all of us. He's actually got to read it. He says it's amazing.
Well, actually, I was asked. I was asked to do a TED Talk, and I did that, and I think it took 10 years off my life. It was very stressful, but it was a lot of fun. If anybody ever has a chance to go to a TED conference, they're up in Vancouver now. It was just awesome, spectacular event. But after that, I was asked to write a book by several different agencies, and I had thought about it for a while. But who's going to read this? A little traffic cop, big deal. Working down at that bridge, suicides and the mental illness, what we deal with down there isn't every day, but it does happen, and it's a kind of a fairly common experience. Not just the suicides, but the folks that we get to be on the lookout, or folks that we take for mental health evaluations. So to me, it was just a day in the life of. I didn't really think of it as something that people would even want to read about, or my life with the depression, my father, his father losing his life to suicide, and what the family had to go through to do that, the struggles of people. So when I was asked about it, I contemplated it for quite some time, and I wanted if I did this, I just didn't want it to be Kevin Briggs' experience. Look at him. I wanted it to be about other people and what they went through. So some folks who had been on the bridge that lived, and the folks that did jump and lose their life. What is it like to be a suicide loss survivor when you get told that this is what happened? Your loved one just jumped off the bridge. So I go into that, and I have stories from folks. It's bitter. It's some stories they're bad. They don't turn out good. But this is life. And how do we continue on with that? That's what this is about. And I have some self-help things, a couple of models that I've developed for myself, and then how to talk to people. Because we know the big thing is communication. If I can tell you one thing, I want it to come to the point to where we can talk at home with the family somewhere before it gets to the level of that bridge. That's what I want. And I'm hoping I have some tools in this book that can help people to do that.
Can I get Dr. Schmitz to comment a little bit on what he read about it? Because I think you have my most quotable quote about Briggs. I believe you said Briggs is a fucking genius.
I think it was, he's freaking amazing.
No, you never say freaking. That's the first time I've ever heard you use that word, Bill Schmitz. Talk a little bit about what you read and some of your thoughts, Bill, about what you saw in the book.
I think what really comes through in the book for me is just, it's really encapsulates the field so well for me, because he really was, he sought out, his career in law enforcement, gets a detail, and basically no one talks about suicide in the Golden Gate Bridge. And to talk about his first instance of negotiating and running up on this woman and quote unquote doing everything wrong, and it still turned out right. And I think that speaks to the emotional and human connection that still survived and maintained through that crisis. And then his progression through that. And Kevin does a great job of really opening himself up, talking about his own experiences with depression, and how he uses that to empathize with people, and family history, and he knows how this impacts everyone. This isn't just somebody. This is that somebody right in front of him. And I applaud his work. And to be a part of helping 200 people to choose life, I thought it was interesting the way he described, well, no one wants to read a book about, a couple saved lives. But when we know that 1.1 million Americans every year are attempting suicide, that tells me there's 1.1 million Americans that can relate to that person on the other side of the bridge. And thank heavens, there's the Kevin Briggses in the world, and the Doc Formans, and the Bart Andrews, and everyone in SPSM. Amazing. And we're going to make Foreman cry again.
No, you're not. But the feed is really good. We do have some folks talking about some of the questions that they're wanting to ask Kevin are, tell us about one of the best moments that you had out at the Golden Gate Bridge. Like what, if you were like an amazing moment there, what would that be?
I can tell you one. I don't know. Here's an amazing moment. It ends in a tragedy, but wow, this shows the human spirit. A little bit about me. When I was in the Army, I got cancer, and it was testicular cancer, and I never told anybody about this that wasn't close to me until maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It's I don't know, like a shameful thing, but anyway, I had a lot of chemotherapy, operations, and such, so I knew what cancer was about. I really do. Well, I was working up on the bridge, riding my motorcycle, and you pull into the lots. I pull into the Vista Point, which overlooks the bay to San Francisco, and I go up and I pull up to the very end of it where everybody is looking at the views, people like to come up and talk with you. You're the chips kind of thing. And I let the kids sit on the bike, and I talk to the folks, and everybody's happy and smiling. It's a neat time, and I get to learn a lot about people from all over the world. Well, this one lady came up and asked me where the bathroom was, and I tell her, and her friend was there. It was two older women, and the other woman comes up, and we just started talking. And what happened was the lady that went to the bathroom she has terminal cancer, and her friend are touring the world until she can no longer do it because of her cancer. It makes you cry. Wow. But how brave she was to be out with her friend, and to have terminal cancer, to be touring the world, to have the thoughts that she did, and the upbeat personality. I didn't have this when I was going through it. I was a nightmare. I was a wreck. It was horrible. But to have the courage to face it like that and still be able to go out and smile, that was amazing. That was a big eye-opener day for me, to see that person, that she's no longer with us, but to have the courage to face that and to go out and still want to do things and see the world with your friend. Amazing.
People are also commenting on the amount of resources that we spend actually trying to save people's lives. Like, you've saved 200 lives, and that is very, very important. But a safety net, how many lives could that save? And so people are sort of talking about that. They're talking about differences in funding and suicide prevention, and they're really noticing like where they think the research should be put. One of the things that you also got asked was about clinician training, and wondering if you speak at all. I know you talked about the training, sort of the awkward sort of misfooting that you had initially with your son and his clinician. What do you have anything to say, Kevin, about clinician training across the country?
And all I know is about for California, so I can only assume that it's that way around the country. But I'm asked to go speak around the country to mental health places about this. And when I'm asked, I always ask who has ever asked me to come there. This is what I talk about with my little boy's story. Is there somebody that's going to be heard about this? There's a lot of, there's egos out there too, and some of these folks. And I've never had someone tell me, no, don't tell the story. Some of our folks will be offended by that. They always say, no, you tell that, because I want our folks to know what it's like and what's going on. It's been overwhelmingly positive. So if the training isn't out there, it's getting held by you folks, by this. I'm hoping to spread the word the best that I can. And there's plenty of other folks out there doing it. It's getting better. It really is, I believe.
We're getting down to our last 10, 13 minutes, and we want to really quickly, and SPSM doesn't get anything for this. This is just a really good book, and we love working with Kevin Briggs. If someone wants to get your book, Kevin, where can they get it, and when can they get it?
Right. It's on Amazon right now for pre-order, and it comes out next month. I was told the 15th, but now I'm told the 22nd. So it's going to be, I know, I go, how could you do this to me? I've been telling everybody it's the 15th. But maybe around the 22nd, but it's on Amazon now. It's going to be in Barnes & Noble and Costco. Apparently they're trying to get me, or I am booked for some signings around the country in Costco and Barnes & Nobles and things.
Cool. We're so literate. I'm like, I can get it at the Costco? That's so convenient.
I am so worried because I have the worst handwriting. I got to go to a book signing. I have to sign. They go, I can't write. What am I going to say? Can I get a stamp for this? I go, what am I going to do?
Well, I had Jonathan Singer sign my book from him, and can I just tell you, I'm sure you'll be fine with your handwriting, right, Singer? So it's available right now on Amazon for pre-order. It's going to come out in 3 or 4 weeks. You can get it at Costco, Barnes & Noble, as always on Amazon. If you do, just really quickly, and then we'll go into final thoughts. If you do get that book, please do tweet us a picture of you with your copy of Kevin Briggs' book, and if you have any comments about it, please do share those comments, hashtag them SPSM, and do reach out to Kevin Briggs on Twitter at Pivotal Points, I can't spell pivotal, but then it's PTS, points. Kevin, very, very quickly, tell people how you want them to get a hold of you.
Well, you can go to my website, www.pivotal-points.com. And I try to answer all the emails personally. Sometimes it takes a little time. But yeah, I love hearing things, and I want to hear about the book if you happen to get it, good, the bad, or otherwise. But it's been a growing experience for me, this whole thing. I love talking to other folks because I get to learn from them. After I talk is the most important time for me, because then I get one-on-one with people, and that is my therapy. But that bonding experience, that is how we connect, and that's how we're going to save lives.
Bill Schmitz, give us some of your final thoughts having read the manuscript, because you really loved this, and tell us a little bit about your thoughts about the chat.
I do. I absolutely, I really enjoyed the parts of the book I read. I will tell you, what also impacted me a lot from the book is some of the very, very graphic descriptions of some of the situations that unfolded. And I know there's a lot of people that would trump out the media reporting guidelines and say, well, this isn't within those guidelines. And I'm okay with that, because I think for a subset of people it's really critical to directly address some of the misconceptions and the fantasies about how freeing and liberating it would be to jump from the Golden Gate Bridge. And I will tell you, Kevin dispels that very clearly and graphically, because that's real. And it's very sad and disturbing and upsetting, and I'm just really thrilled that I got to be a part of this, and it's great to talk to Kevin tonight and see everyone else.
Let's go back to just the reporting guidelines just very briefly, because I want to talk with that. I was today I've been very fortunate to be with the Pointer people. Kelly McBride spoke today at Kelly McBee, and she is an ethicist, journal ethicist, who talks about those reporting guidelines. And what she's going to say is the reason that they call them guidelines is because the ethics are not about rules. Ethics are about doing the right thing, and that guidelines sort of help you know where the right thing is likely to be. What we want to say about reading a book like this is if you know that graphic nature is going to put you or someone else at risk, we don't want you to read it. But for those who are going to get really good information about dispelling some of the myths of suicide, and that they're going to have insight, that we think that that's a personal choice that people make about what's safe for them to read, and that if they know that that's in the book, they can make a choice about whether or not to read that. Kevin, can you briefly comment about why you chose to write it?
Right. Well, especially I will talk about the graphic part. I am not here to sell this book and anything. I wanted to tell the absolute truth, and this is what happens if you decide to jump off that bridge with someone. This is what happens. You can't sugarcoat it. It's a horrible thing. So this is, I talk the fall and what happens when you hit and this things, but there's also positive stories, and there's those. A lot of life. Yes, that people were down and out, and how they came to be, and how they rose up. And some people didn't rise up. They're still struggling in life, but this is life, and that's what I wanted this book to be about. A learning, maybe a resource with some guidelines, but to show you there is life out there. Yep.
Bart, I want to give you a few minutes, because this is the quietest you and I have ever been on a chat.
It's easy to be quiet when there's this much wisdom filling up the space, and the natural dialogue between Bill and Kevin was just beautiful, and I've been just really absorbed in the intense wisdom on the thread, and just listening to Kevin has been really special. So thank you, Kevin, so much. What a treat. Can't wait to read the book. I'm so glad you came on the show. Some things that really hit me. One of the things Kevin's talking about, and this is why sometimes when I'm in a room with a bunch of researchers, I just want to scream, because they keep missing the point that we can learn so much from the people that we're trying to help. And I know a lot of researchers don't believe in qualitative research, and I don't know why that is. I know that there's a lot of folks that just don't think that's very helpful. What Kevin is describing is exactly what we want people who are doing suicide prevention to do. which is to be empathetic, to get down on their level, to not be an expert, to let that person be the expert, to let that person be in control. As Kevin pointed out, it's got to be something they want to do. And so that whole concept, he's talking about motivational interviewing, he's talking about some DBT skills training. The piece I thought was so powerful, Kevin, and this is something I was thinking about, how do I take this back to my clinicians? Asking the person you're working with, hey, what am I doing that's helping you? What am I doing that isn't helping you? And I think, Kevin, the strength for you was that you were so secure in yourself that you didn't let your ego get in the way. And I think so many professionals are afraid that they have to be the expert and do the right thing. And if I ask the person I'm working with what's working, what isn't, that somehow they've diminished themselves. And that's very troubling to me, because I think good therapy should be a feedback loop, and it should involve the clinician getting themselves as low as possible to the person and letting them guide them on how best to help them. And you modeled that so well. So that wisdom, and so I'm thinking, I want to build that into my suicide intervention training at BHR. Ask the person, what is it that I did that was helpful? What am I doing that isn't helpful? Tell me. I just have a feeling that when we test that out, that it's going to be very powerful. I also think it's going to be really scary for clinicians. I think that's going to be hard. So, Kevin, thank you. Just watching the Twitter feed, this has been so cool. And I think everybody that's watching this feed is like, why aren't all mental health professionals required to have this kind of training? My answer to that is too long. But the long and the short of it is, the long and the short of it is that we're wrong. And we need to require a much higher level of training for our graduate students and our practicing professionals, because you know what, one suicide is too many, and we need to do a much better job. And you're leading the way, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. It's been a great time. Thank you for having me. It's been an honor. It really has.
Don't worry. We'll have you back. You're not getting away from this this easy. You know, I want to go back to a comment that Bill said that I think encapsulates what Kevin Briggs. There's something very emotionally true about something that Bill said, where we have, is it 1.1 million, Bill, that attempt suicide a year? Okay, and I have this in a presentation for tomorrow. I can't believe this. It's just not in my head right this minute. We have 1.1 million Americans who attempt suicide each year, and these are just adults over the age of 18. These aren't even children younger than that. So, I mean, think about what those numbers are. For all these folks who are attempting suicide, there are many Kevin Briggs, and we know that Kevin is there for these folks on the Golden Gate Bridge. But we know that there are people in the world that help keep others alive. And I just feel like the final thought is that you want to be that person, and you want to empower members of the community to effectively be that person. Because unfortunately, you know, the government won't allow me to clone Kevin Briggs.
You wouldn't want to.
but that spirit of wanting to help people in that hardest moment, make the choice to live in a respect.
Is that me?
But all of us as individuals can also make the individual choice to be compassionate.
Right.
Kevin, really quickly, give everybody your Twitter and give them a wave.
Okay. Yeah, the Twitter is pivotal, PIVOTAL, points, just PTS. Okay. Thank you all so much. Had a great time. An hour flew by. It really did. I would like to stay longer. It was a lot of fun. So thank you all very much for joining.
We are so grateful to have Kevin. Thank you very much for being with us. The Storify curation of tonight's chat, including the video and all of the amazing tweets, which Kevin has yet to read, will be coming up shortly. We are going on to summer hiatus, and what summer hiatus means is that I take a break on some Sunday nights. That gives me a chance to come up with good story and guest ideas, so please do continue over the summer to keep those ideas coming. You can still stay active with us. We have SPSM Facebook chats that are pretty much ongoing 24/7. We have the SPSM page. You can tweet to our Twitter account, or you can tweet using the hashtag. Just because we're not having a Sunday night chat doesn't mean that you can't get together and talk about suicide prevention anytime that you want. We're going to be coming back the last Sunday in August. I want to say that's August 29th, but it's 28th, 29th-ish at 9 p.m. Central. We do have a guest booked for that, but because that's a few weeks out and things can be fluid a little bit, I'm not going to announce it, but it's a good guest. and we will be coming back strong. We're already pretty close to booking out for fall. And I'm very excited for the lineup that we have coming for you all. This is the end of year 2. This has been an amazing experience to be with you. I want to thank Bart Andrews. I want to thank Tony Wood. I want to thank Sean, our social worker who is always helping us with the account. The many of you who contribute to our programming, who have been live tweeting, who've done guest spots. You know who you are. It is amazing to work with you. Until we see you again in a few weeks.
And Adam and Sarah. Adam and Sarah did a great job tonight.
Adam and Sarah, you're amazing! Hashtag zero suicide. Hashtag amazeballs. We will see you guys in a few weeks. Bye-bye.